Having been secretly married to Gu Yanzhou for 3 years, he told me he wanted to give me a wedding I would never forget when I was 8 months pregnant. Clutching my belly, I stood on the stage, full of anticipation, but his assistant walked towards me instead. She threw the bright red marriage certificate in my face in front of everyone. "Lin Lucy, you shameless gold digger, you think you can climb the social ladder just because you're carrying a bastard? Dream on! Weren't your parents supposed to be guardians of marriage? How did they raise a daughter who's such a cheap slut?" Gu Yanzhou stood behind her, his cold gaze plunging me into hell. Later, I understood. He got the marriage certificate with his assistant the day before our wedding to avenge his deceased childhood sweetheart and her mother. That night, my mother couldn't handle the online abuse and died of a heart attack, and my father fell and became a vegetable. He personally reported that all my papers were plagiarized, causing me to be stripped of my graduate and university degrees. Unsurprisingly, I became a universally condemned gold digger, and my premature baby became a bastard. The next time I saw Gu Yanzhou was 5 years later. He said he wanted to give me and my child a home. "Lin Lucy?" The voice that had dragged me back to nightmares countless times made me stiffen. I turned my head and met Gu Yanzhou's shocked gaze. His tailored suit perfectly overlapped with the memory of that cold groom. In these 5 years, I had imagined countless reunion scenarios, but I never thought it would be in a place like this, with this identity. I thought I would be consumed by hatred when I saw him again, but I felt nothing. "Excuse me." I tried to walk past him, but he reached out and stopped me. The laughter and teasing from the private room of the club broke the silent stalemate. So what if I couldn't get my hands on the unattainable Yin Rushua back then? No matter how pure and saintly she was, her precise daughter, whom she raised so carefully, can only kneel on the ground like a dog begging for my affection. "You're amazing, old Joe." I heard Yin Rushua was driven to death by her own cheap daughter. If you weren't taking care of her, who knows where she'd be selling herself? Yin Rushua was my mother. The one boasting was my sugar daddy, Zhou Mingxing, who had once been my mother's ardent admirer. The thing he was most proud of in his life was that the daughter of his former goddess had been reduced to his mistress. I pretended not to notice the triumph in Zhou Mingxing's tone and reached for the doorknob, ready to go inside. But Gu Yanzhou pulled me behind him and suddenly flung the door open. "Who are you talking about, so happily?" The people inside didn't see me behind him. Their laughter paused for a moment, then resumed. Zhou Mingxing swayed to his feet, his face full of mockery. "Is Gu also interested in my little mistress? Then we'll let everyone have a good look later. She's very cheap, only 150,000 a year, and I can enjoy her 365 days a year, and she guarantees a different style every day. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to call her an incubus." Laughter erupted, and everyone praised Zhou Mingxing for being vigorous and well-trained. Seeing that the topic was about to turn vulgar, I broke free from Gu Yanzhou's grasp and walked to Zhou Mingxing's side with a smile, skillfully studying him. "Didn't the doctor tell you to drink less?" The private room suddenly fell silent. A dozen gazes fell on me like spotlights, especially the scorching gaze from Gu Yanzhou. Zhou Mingxing sobered up a bit and realized that I had heard what he had said. But he showed no remorse and even pinched my chest in front of everyone. "You're late and you dared to tell me what to do?" He turned to the others and announced triumphantly, "This is the precious daughter of Yin Rushua I told you about. I spent 3 years trying to win her mother over, but it only took me 3 seconds to win her." Zhou Mingxing's hand slid down my back. A wave of nausea churned in my stomach. I maintained my smile, letting him show off his trophy in front of everyone. These humiliations were nothing compared to my father's medical expenses and my son's surgery fees. I gently wiped the wine stains from the corner of his mouth with my sleeve and smiled. "The doctor said you should quit drinking, so consider it for my sake." The tenderness in my eyes stopped him from humiliating me in public, and he poured me 3 glasses of wine. "I told you to be here in 15 minutes, why were you late? Hurry up and apologize to all the bosses, or your leave for tonight is invalid." If I hadn't run into Gu Yanzhou at the door, I wouldn't have been late. From lulling my son to sleep to rushing over despite my high fever, I had calculated everything perfectly. Although Zhou Mingxing was almost 50, he couldn't fall asleep without tormenting me, unless I was sick. But today, I asked him for leave, and he set conditions. If I didn't appease him, I wouldn't get any sleep tonight. I ignored Guyenjo's inscrutable gaze, picked up the 3 glasses of white wine in front of me, and drank them all in one gulp. 3 glasses of strong liquor went down, and my stomach churned. My feverish body couldn't handle it at all. My throat burned, and my vision blurred. "Excuse me, I'm going to the restroom." I turned and stumbled into the restroom, vomiting violently. The alcohol mixed with stomach acid burned my throat, and tears welled up uncontrollably. I gripped the edge of the sink tightly, looking at myself in the mirror, pale, with lips unnaturally red from the fever, and strands of hair stuck to my cheeks, damp with cold sweat. So ugly. I cupped cold water and splashed it on my face, trying to wake myself up. My mother hated gold diggers the most in her life. "Does she know you're being a cheap mistress now?" A cold voice came from behind me. I met Guyenjo's sarcastic gaze in the mirror. He leaned against the door, dressed in a suit, his expression indifferent, as if he were just watching a joke. I tugged at the corners of my mouth, didn't answer, and continued to rinse my mouth. Seeing that I wasn't speaking, he walked closer with a cold laugh. "What, are you mute? Isn't this exactly what you wanted?" I answered whatever he wanted to hear. The current me had long lost her former pride. Guyenjo's gaze suddenly darkened, with a hint of astonishment. Facing those cold eyes, the nightmarish wedding 5 years ago resurfaced. His assistant, Liang Xia, threw the marriage certificate in my face, calling me a gold digger. The guests below pointed and whispered. My mother collapsed on the spot, and my father slapped me in the face. And Guyenjo stood in the middle of the crowd, watching all this coldly. He hated me, because he believed that my mother had forced his childhood sweetheart and her mother to their deaths. But it was Suwon's mother who interfered in someone else's marriage, becoming a gold digger and taking away the original wife's property. My mother, as a lawyer, helped the original wife win the lawsuit and get back what belonged to her. And it was Suwon's mother who was unwilling and took her to threaten to jump off a building, trying to force Thee to change his mind, but slipped and fell, killing both mother and daughter. Guyenjo didn't believe it and couldn't accept this fact. He stubbornly believed that my mother had forced them to their deaths. So, he meticulously approached me, tricked me into a secret marriage, and then publicly humiliated me at the wedding, destroying my entire family. Lin Lucy, how did your mother raise you? Zhou Mingxing could be your father, and you're so cheap that you're being his mistress? He stared at me, his eyes full of sarcasm. My mother's death was a hurdle I could never overcome. My heart felt like it was being clenched tightly. I bit my lip hard to stop the tears from falling. That proud mother, who hated gold diggers the most, was still being criticized for raising a daughter badly, for raising a cheap daughter. I took a deep breath, suppressed the lump in my throat, and laughed. Yes, I'm just cheap, or how would I have believed your nonsense back then and been your mistress for 3 years? Guyenjo's face darkened, and just as he was about to speak, my legs suddenly went weak, and I almost fell. He instinctively reached out to support me. His palm touched my burning skin, and his expression changed drastically. "You have a fever?" I pushed him away and barely stood firm. "It's none of your business." He pulled me, trying to take me to the hospital. I struggled violently, but couldn't shake off his iron grip. "Let go! President Zhou is still waiting for me. I don't have time to play with you." A storm of anger surged in Guyenjo's eyes. Before he could explode, the restroom door was suddenly pushed open. "Oh, President Gu, are you interested in my little mistress?" Zhou Mingxing leaned drunkenly against the door frame, his eyes scanning back and forth between me and Guyenjo, his smile meaningful. Guyenjo glanced at him coldly and didn't let go. "She has a fever." Zhou Mingxing sneered. "My woman, it's none of your business?" He walked over and pulled me into his arms to assert his ownership. Let's go back and continue drinking." I endured the discomfort and obediently followed him away, but Guyenjo suddenly said, "Zhou Mingxing, humiliating the daughter of your former love, is this what you call love?" My mind was hazy, and I didn't understand what Guyenjo meant. He forced my mother to death, ruined my family, and now he was sympathizing with me? Zhou Mingxing narrowed his eyes, his tone unfriendly. "President Gu, what you're saying is meaningless, isn't it? Gu Yanzhou ignored him and directly reached out to scoop me into his arms. She has such a high fever, and you're still letting her dri. NK? President Zhou, it's all fun and games, but it wouldn't be good if someone died. Zhou Mingxing's face changed, and he obviously realized that my condition was not right. But he quickly sneered, "What, President Gu, are you feeling sorry for her? You didn't treat her like this when you trampled her in the mud back then." Gu Yanzhou didn't answer, grabbed me, and walked out. I struggled, and he picked me up horizontally. Zhou Mingxing cursed behind him, but Gu Yanzhou didn't look back. I was burning all over and didn't even have the strength to struggle. I could only let him stuff me into the car. Zhou Mingxing took advantage of his carelessness, also got into the car, sat in the passenger seat, and said in a cold voice, "President Gu, where are you taking my woman?" Gu Yanzhou ignored his deliberately emphasized tone and said lightly, "If she gets a brain damage from the fever, it won't be fun for you to play with her." Zhou Mingxing snorted and said nothing more. The car drove through the night, and the car was silent. Until Gu Yanzhou asked me, "Where is the child buried? I want to see him." My heart contracted violently, and my nails dug into my palm. He thought Xiao Bao was dead. 5 years ago, after the wedding farce, I gave birth to a boy prematurely, but Gu Yanzhou didn't even bother to look at him. Later, he destroyed everything I had, and I left with Xiao Bao, who had congenital heart disease. Everyone thought the child didn't survive. I didn't want Gu Yanzhou to know that Xiao Bao was still alive. No need. He doesn't deserve a father like you. To be precise, people like Gu Yanzhou didn't deserve to be my child's father. If it hadn't been for the premature birth, Xiao Bao's heart disease wouldn't have been so severe. Gu Yanzhou slammed on the brakes, and the hand holding the steering wheel tightened suddenly, his knuckles turning white. Zhou Mingxing almost hit his head and sneered with a cold face, "President Gu, the person is dead, ya? Were you pretending to be a loving father and son?" Gu Yanzhou ignored him, got out of the car, dragged Zhou Mingxing out, threw him on the ground, and drove away. Only Gu Yanzhou and I were left in the car. The shadows of the trees flashed past rapidly, and the air was so stagnant that it was suffocating. Fortunately, we arrived at the hospital soon. After seeing the doctor, I walked out of the hospital to take a taxi without waiting for him to get the medicine. As soon as the online car-hailing car arrived, he rudely closed the car door and drove the driver away. "Are you in such a hurry to go back and serve him? Lin Lucy, how cheap are you going to be?" I didn't know how cheap I could be. I only knew that my life had fallen into darkness from that day of the wedding. A gold digger who was universally condemned like a rat crossing the street, without a diploma, couldn't even find a job that could support a family. The savings my parents had accumulated were spent in just 1 year. Everything that could be sold was sold, but it still couldn't pay for the expensive medical expenses. I had also thought about dying with my father and son. But at the last moment, Zhou Mingxing found out that I wanted to die and offered to take care of me. He said that there was hope as long as people were alive. In fact, I had no hope, but the child who was connected to me by blood should not be abandoned. My father, who had been implicated by me, should not be deprived of the right to live. For their medical expenses, I only hesitated for 3 seconds before agreeing to be Zhou Mingxing's mistress. I looked up at Gu Yanzhou and tugged at the corner of my mouth. Didn't President Gu already know? I've always been so cheap. In the past, being cheap and falling in love with Gu Yanzhou only led to eternal hell. Later, being cheap and being someone else's mistress could save 3 lives. I thought it was worth it. Even though Zhou Mingxing was always rude, he gave me more money than he should. For this alone, I was grateful to him. As for what he was trying to seek from me, I didn't care anymore. I self-abusedly believed that those daily and nightly beatings were atonement. Even Zhou Mingxing laughed at me, saying that my mother would be so angry that she would come back from the dead. I even fantasized, would my mother really come back to life if I was more humble? Then my father would definitely wake up, instead of lying in bed as a living dead. After the wedding, one revenge scheme after another caught our family off guard. If it hadn't been for the sudden heart attack, my mother would have been able to prove my innocence, but there was no if in life. Seeing that I was calm, Gu Yanzhou's eyes surged with emotions, and he finally let go with a cold laugh. "Get out." I turned and took a taxi home. I rushed into the room and saw Xiaobao's face was red, his breathing was rapid, and his small body was frighteningly hot. Mom, I feel bad. I trembled and picked up Xiaobao, comforting him while frantically dialing 120. The ambulance roared away from the community, and I didn't notice that Gu Yanzhou was staring intently at the direction of the ambulance from the black car parked by the side of the road, his eyes dark and unpredictable. Fortunately, Xiaobao was out of danger after being rescued. But it was only temporary. His condition was extremely unstable, and the doctor said that he must have surgery as soon as possible. Faced with at least 500,000 in surgery fees, my mouth was bitter, and I dialed Zhou Mingxing's number. Can you advance me 500,000? On the other end of the phone, Zhou Mingxing sneered. What, you want money again? The child is sick and needs surgery. Tonight, I want to unlock new positions. My nails dug deeply into my palm, and I said calmly, okay. I hung up the phone, and the bank card soon received 300,000. According to the rules, I had to serve Zhou Mingxing well before I could get the remaining 200,000. Thinking of his special fetishes, my scalp tingled. I turned back to the ward and bumped into a wall of flesh. Gu Yanzhou stood behind me, looking at me with cold eyes. Lin Lucy, you're even cheaper than you were back then. Why do you always want to use children to tie up men? Once, I loved him, and when he said to have a secret marriage, I agreed. I didn't even realize that the marriage certificate was forged by him. He said he would make our relationship public when I was pregnant, so I tried my best to treat polycystic ovaries and prepare for pregnancy. I took so many bitter medicines, not because I wanted to use the child to tie him up, but simply because I wanted to give birth to the crystallization of our love. I never thought that 3 years of deep affection was just a revenge plan for him. I couldn't help but laugh with tears in my eyes, and said with a normal expression, I'm sorry to disappoint you. This time I successfully tied up a man with my child. Gu Yanzhou's fist clenched tightly, and his eyebrows raised slightly, which was a sign that he was angry. But he unexpectedly held back. Leave Zhou Mingxing and come with me. But I don't raise bastards. That child, just throw him to him, and I don't believe he'll let his own son die. I looked up at him and suddenly couldn't laugh. It turned out that even after seeing Xiaobao with his own eyes, he failed to recognize that he was his child. Gu Yanzhou, a good horse doesn't turn back. I won't be someone's mistress twice. His fists cracked, and he tried to restrain his anger. You'd rather debase yourself to save Zhou Mingxing's child? He's a well-known scoundrel, and he tortures women like pigs and dogs. He seemed to sincerely want to dig me up to be his mistress. But I still refused. He was angry that I didn't appreciate his kindness and left. I barely tucked Xiaobao in and went to Zhou Mingxing's villa. As soon as it dawned, I left the villa covered in bruises. Finally, I received the remaining 200,000 in my phone. Back at the hospital, I gently stroked Xiaobao's pale face, and tears slid down silently. Mom, why are you crying? Xiaobao opened his eyes groggily and reached out to touch my face, which was full of tears. I hurriedly wiped away the tears. It's okay, Mom is just too happy. The doctor said that baby can have surgery soon. Xiaobao smiled weakly, his eyes full of stars. Then after the surgery, can I run like other children? I nodded, choking with sobs. When Xiaobao gets better, Mom will take you to the amusement park. Xiaobao fell asleep contentedly, and I leaned wearily on the bench in the hallway to rest, but soon I heard a commotion. It's her! That shameless gold digger! The words gold digger instantly woke me up, and I saw a wealthy woman rushing over with several burly men and slapping me hard in the face. Bitch! It's you who dared to seduce my brother and make him stay single until now? I staggered back a few steps from the slap, and before I could stand firm, my hair was grabbed hard. Strip her! Let everyone see what this slut looks like. Screams, insults, and tearing. Xiaobao cried and wanted to rush up to help me, but they controlled him and subjected him to insults. The moment my clothes were torn apart, I closed my eyes in despair. Everything seemed to have returned to 5 years ago. In the hospital corridor, everyone was holding up their phones to take pictures, pointing and whispering, but no one came forward to help. I begged them to let Xiaobao go, at least not let him see his mother being humiliated, but no one listened. Serves you right. This is what you get for being a gold digger. Looks pretty pure, but I didn't expect her to be so cheap. With my clothes torn off, the bruises and ambiguous marks on my body were exposed. Zhou Mingxing, like Gu Yanzhou in the past, watched his sister coldly, humiliating me to the extreme. The insults and beatings ended at some point, and I curled up on the ground, shivering, constantly murmuring sorry. Xiao Bao had also fainted and was rushed back to the emergency room. For the first time, I didn't dare to go to the emergency room door. I was afraid of receiving news that I couldn't accept. Suddenly, a suit jacket was placed on me. I looked up and met Gu Yanzhou's complicated eyes. See that? This is what you get for being a gold digger. If you come with me, at least you won't be stripped naked. With just one glance, I knew that he had tipped off Zhou Mingxing's sister. I didn't know how he could say this. Ever since he had his assistant identify me as a gold digger at the wedding, I had been in a state of being stripped naked. That suit jacket on my body was like the emperor's new clothes. I suddenly laughed out loud. Even if it's more miserable, it's better than being your mistress. At least he's single. Gu Yanzhou didn't get my begging for mercy and surrender, and his eyes were extremely gloomy. Lin Lucy, you'll regret it sooner or later for being so ungrateful. He was right, I had already regretted it, regretted meeting him, regretted falling in love with him. 3 days later, Xiao Bao successfully matched a heart. The surgery fee was also raised. For the first time in 5 years, I breathed a sigh of relief, but suddenly received a call from the doctor. Ms. Lin, your father is showing signs of waking up. I rushed into the ward in ecstasy, but saw Gu Yanzhou standing in front of the hospital bed. And my father stared at his phone screen with wide eyes, which was playing a video of me being publicly humiliated. Dad, let me explain. I rushed up tremblingly and smashed Gu Yanzhou's phone. My father raised his hand with difficulty, pointed at me, and his lips trembled. Wicked daughter. The next second, the monitor issued a piercing alarm. The patient's heart has stopped. Quick, save him. I collapsed on the ground, watching the doctors work busily. In the end, I only got the sentence that we tr. IED our best, please accept our condolences. Fate seemed to be a cycle, just like 5 years ago. As long as Gu Yanzhou stood there, even if he didn't say a word, he could make me fall from the clouds into the abyss. The hatred buried deep in my bones roared out. I turned around suddenly, grabbed Gu Yanzhou's collar tightly, and roared at him, why did you show him that video? Gu Yanzhou's face was pale. I just wanted to wake him up, wanted to give you a surprise. Surprise? Another surprise. Wasn't it enough of a surprise that he killed my mother 5 years ago? I laughed loudly, and tears flowed uncontrollably. Gu Yanzhou, I admit that you made me fall into the mud. But why did you kill my mother? Why didn't you even spare my father? What did I do wrong? He hugged me tightly, trembling all over. Lucy, I'm sorry. I didn't know it would be like this. I just wanted to atone for my sins after finding out that Xiao Bao was my child. I wanted to give you and the child a complete home. Gu Yanzhou's words were like a thunderbolt to me. I tried to push him away, but couldn't, and he hugged me even tighter. Lucy, give me a chance, let me make it up to you and the child. Make it up? Do you deserve it? Gu Yanzhou was asked by me, his face pale. Xiao Bao is my son, I have the right to take care of him. Disgusted, I pushed him away with all my strength. 5 years ago, you didn't even want to look at him. Why are you pretending to be a loving father now? Gu Yanzhou's eyes darkened, and he took out a document from his suit pocket in frustration. The matched heart, I found it. I sensed what he was going to say next, stared at the heart-matching report, my fingers trembling. Sure enough, he leaned closer, his voice gentle but cruel. Lucy, you don't want to see Xiao Bao die, do you? Leave Zhou Mingxing, marry me, otherwise, this heart will disappear immediately. I closed my eyes, and tears slid down silently. Finally, I nodded, okay. He smiled with satisfaction and reached out to hug me, but I dodged him. Before the wedding, I want to see the heart transplant surgery completed. Gu Yanzhou couldn't wait to arrange Xiao Bao's surgery and wedding. I went alone to deal with my father's funeral. As soon as I walked out of the hospital, Zhou Mingxing rushed out from somewhere and pulled me into the car. Lin Lucy, you're so brave, you dare to seduce Guyen Zhou behind my back? I told him calmly, President Zhou, our transaction is over. He sneered, over? You just took 500,000 from me, and you want to end it? Don't forget, those scandalous photos and videos of yours are all in my hands. What do you think will happen if you let your son see how cheap his mother is, like a dog? I was cold all over, as if I had fallen into an ice cave. What do you want? Zhou Mingxing stroked my face and said slowly, tonight, the old rules, otherwise. I didn't know how I got to the crematorium, or how I held the urn and buried my father. I was like a walking corpse, doing what I should do, trying my best to atone for my sins. Back in the ward again, Gu Yanzhou's eyes were dark and unpredictable when he looked at me. Zhou Mingxing looked for you? Didn't you promise me to break up with him? Or have you fallen in love with this man who can be your father in these 5 years? I was cold all over and couldn't say a word. Gu Yanzhou squeezed my chin hard, forcing me to look up at him. Lin Lucy, don't challenge my patience. Give me some time to deal with it. Late at night, I stood in front of Zhou Mingxing's villa, trembling all over. As soon as the door opened, he dragged me in and threw me hard on the sofa. You've gotten so skilled? You dare to make me wait so long? I endured the fear and disgust and tried my best to please him. President Zhou, our transaction is over. I'll slowly pay you back the money. Pay back? What are you going to use to pay back? Zhou Mingxing leaned closer, his fingers pinching my neck. Lin Lucy, do you think Gu Yanzhou can really protect you? I was having difficulty breathing, and my vision was blurred. Suddenly, the door was kicked open, and Gu Yanzhou rushed in with people. Seeing who it was, Zhou Mingxing said casually, President Gu, it's not appropriate to break into a private house, is it? Let her go. Zhou Mingxing slowly pulled up his pants and shrugged. What, does President Gu also like picking up broken shoes? The next second, Gu Yanzhou punched him in the face. Zhou Mingxing staggered backward, blood trickling from his lips, yet he laughed even more maniacally. Gu Yanzhou, you think tattling to my sister will steal my woman? But he alone couldn't stop Gu Yanzhou from taking me away. Enraged, he smashed a bottle of red wine on the table. Lin Lucy, even a dog you raise for 5 years deserves some affection. Are you really that cheap? So cheap that he snaps his fingers, and you forget why you ended up this way? How could I forget? I couldn't forget. The nightmares that haunted me in the dead of night were constant reminders of those humiliations. But they were all the same to me, a den of wolves or a tiger's lair. Seeing me trembling, barely able to stand, Gu Yanzhou swept me up in his arms, murmuring, Don't be afraid. I'm here. I closed my eyes, tears silently streaming down. Weren't all my nightmares caused by him? The 66th day arrived in the blink of an eye, the day of the surgery. I stood outside the hospital room, my heart a tangled mess. Gu Yanzhou handed me a cup of hot coffee. Don't worry, the lead surgeon is a specialist I brought in from abroad. I didn't take it, just stared at the operating room door, saying each word distinctly, if the surgery fails, I will kill you. Xiao Bao was the only spiritual pillar keeping me alive. If anything happened to him, Gu Yanzhou gripped my shoulders, forcing me to look at him. Lin Lucy, what happened back then is ancient history. Do you really te me that much? Ancient history, he says. He avenged the mother and daughter he grew up with, but I can never escape the abyss, destined to rot in the stinking mud. What do you think? Gu Yanzhou had some self-awareness and didn't say anything more, just stood silently beside me. My phone suddenly vibrated. It was a message from Zhou Mingxing, You'll never get rid of me. Immediately after, a series of incredibly shameful photos popped up. My fingers trembled, and I almost dropped the phone. Gu Yanzhou noticed something was wrong, frowning and asking what was going on. I quickly locked the screen, feigning composure. He snatched the phone, using the date of my mother's death, which was also supposed to be our wedding day, to unlock it. The photos were laid bare. Zhou Mingxing. Even though he clenched his teeth, they still chattered with rage. I'll take care of this. You just wait for Xiao Bao's surgery. 5 hours passed, and the operating light was still on. I huddled on the long bench, trying to hold myself tight. Gu Yanzhou sat across from me, his gaze never leaving me. Back then, were you also waiting for me to turn back? He suddenly spoke, a depth of emotion in his eyes that I couldn't decipher, but it only earned my denial. For Xiaobao's sake, I swallowed all the sarcastic words. How could I possibly wait for someone who destroyed my entire family? The truth was, misfortune would always befall me when he was near. Now, I only prayed that God would have mercy on me, seeing as I had nothing left, and ensure Xiaobao's surgery was a success. When this wish was granted, my legs went weak, and I almost knelt before the doctor, but Gu Yanzhou caught me. The child is stable for now, but he needs to be monitored for 48 hours. My eyes read, I thanked the doctor. The doctor glanced at Gu Yanzhou, hesitating before speaking to me, Ms. Lin, regarding the follow-up treatment costs. Gu Yanzhou interrupted him. All according to the highest standards. After the doctor left, I shook off his hand, saying a detached thank you. 3 days after the surgery, Xiaobao was finally out of danger. I fell into a light sleep by the hospital bed, startled awake by a jarring ringtone. Zhou Mingxing had initiated a video call. I hesitated for a few seconds, then walked to the hallway to answer. On the screen, he was waving a stack of documents. Guess what these are? Zhou Mingxing had always been a madman. Every time we were intimate, he would film videos of my humiliation for his leisure. I didn't dare look at those shameful memories, trembling as I asked him, what exactly do you want to let me go? 5 years, a full 5 years of torment and humiliation, wasn't that enough to compensate for my mother's rejection of his lovelorn advances? He saw the plea in my eyes, sneering. Tonight at 10, same place. Otherwise, these highlights will be posted on the dark web, and by the way, they'll be burned to your mother as well. Then, she might really be angry enough to come back to life. The video abruptly ended. A chilling voice came from behind. You're going to see him? I turned around. Gu Yanzhou stood there, his gaze terrifying. Lin Lucy, have you really fallen in love with him? What exactly do I lack compared to him? Why do you have to fall for Zhou Mingxing, that old lunatic? He thought I was still the same me, willing to give my heart's desire whatever he wanted. He had apparently forgotten that he was the one who took away my courage to love, and also my pride. For the past 5 years, I had merely been living to survive. Exhaustion made me murmur unconsciously, he's going to burn all that evidence for my mother to see. Gu Yanzhou hurried away, returning that night with a hard drive. Now, can you safely be with me? The hard drive contained all the material Zhou Mingxing had used to threaten me. But I was even more puzzled. Gu Yanzhou knew that I had been Zhou Mingxing's mistress for 5 years. Why? Did he still insist on marrying me? Did he want to use this hard drive to push me into the abyss again? My throat tightened. I wanted the hard drive back, but I didn't have the courage, and I didn't know if he had made a backup to manipulate me just like Zhou Mingxing. Xiaobao's follow-up treatment costs were a huge expense. Gu Yanzhou's recent behavior, at least on the surface, showed that he cared about his son. I forced myself to stop my paranoia, stammering, I will keep my promise and marry you. I don't know what methods Gu Yanzhou used, but Zhou Mingxing was imprisoned. He hired the best lawyer for me, taking me to court to witness Zhou Mingxing's trial. In just half a month, Zhou Mingxing looked impossibly old. The look he gave me was full of mockery and sorrow. Lin Lucy, those who betray me will come to no good. Just like your mother. His curse was incredibly vicious. Gu Yanzhou reached out and covered my ears, but he couldn't stop the scolding from Zhou Mingxing's sister from reaching my ears. Leaving the courthouse, he held me close, not allowing anyone to bully me. He announced loudly to the crowd, anyone who dares to bully my wife again, better weigh their options. Wife. I had loved him for 3 years, and then he had ruined me by saddling me with the title of mistress for 5 years. The name I had dreamed of hearing felt so foreign that it frightened me. I was really puzzled, finally asking him in the car, why marry me? You and Liang Xia. We got divorced a month after getting our license. I married her just to. The car fell silent. We both knew very well that he had married Liang Xia to avenge Su Wan and her daughter. I looked out the window, my mind in a mess. It wasn't until the car stopped in front of the Civil Affairs Bureau that Gu Yanzhou spoke again. Lucy, what happened back then was my fault. I later found out the truth about Su Wan's fall. But I didn't dare turn back to find you. I hid from you like a quail for 5 years. You don't know how I got through those nights. Lucy, it really wasn't your mother's fault back then. Sunlight streamed through the window, illuminating his red-rimmed eyes. His voice was hoarse, and it took him a long time to say, I hated the wrong person and caused our tragedy. I've been regretting and blaming myself for these past 5 years. Lucy, thank you for giving me a chance to make up for the past. He gallantly opened the car door for me, inviting me to get out of the car, inviting me to complete the romance we had once failed to finish. But there wasn't a trace of emotion in my heart. I wanted to ask him if he knew how I had gotten through those nights. But in the end, I kept silent and walked into the Civil Affairs Bureau with him. This time, the stamp was real, and the license was real. Only the love was gone. Gu Yanzhou's speed in preparing the wedding was astonishing. He booked the entire rose manor, air freighting in 10,000 fresh roses from France, and personally reviewed the guest list. Lucy, what style of wedding dress do you like? He showed me design drawings on the tablet, his eyes as eager as a young man in love for the first time. I randomly pointed to one. This one, I guess. He frowned. Didn't you used to love mermaid styles the most? I was taken aback. So he still remembered. But Lucy, who could be happy all day long over a mermaid dress, had died 5 years ago at the wedding. I don't like them anymore. Gu Yanzhou's eyes darkened, but he still nodded with a smile. Okay, whatever you want. The night before the wedding, he was with Xiaobao, having him try on a little suit. Dad! After spending a short time together, Xiaobao had already come to love this man who was endlessly loving to both of us. Xiaobao called out sweetly, his little face full of excitement and anticipation. Dad, can I be a flower boy tomorrow? Gu Yanzhou's eyes instantly turned red, and he picked up Xiaobao. Of course, my baby. Look. Ing at the scene of the father and son embracing, my nose tingled. If there hadn't been that farce 5 years ago, how happy would we be now? Late at night, I tossed and turned, unable to sleep, and got up to go to the children's room to check on Xiaobao. Pushing open the door, I found Gu Yanzhou kneeling by Xiaobao's bed, gently stroking the child's face. In the moonlight, I saw tears on his face. I'm sorry. He murmured. Daddy came back late. It's all Daddy's fault for being a jerk and making you and Mom suffer. Xiaobao woke up at some point, his face also full of tears. He hugged Gu Yanzhou tightly, crying out for his father. At this moment, I almost softened. But the next second, memories flooded back like a tide, the sight of my mother falling, the disappointed look in my father's eyes, the overwhelming abuse online, the doctor's notices from time to time. I gently closed the door and returned to my room. On the day of the wedding, the manor was as beautiful as a fairy tale. I wore a gorgeous wedding dress, standing in front of the mirror, but I only felt like a stranger. Mommy, you look so pretty today. Xiaobao ran in wearing a little suit, his cheeks flushed, and the smile on his face was no longer the timid one he showed Zhou Mingxing. I squatted down to hug him, but found that he was burning up. Xiaobao, are you feeling unwell anywhere? He frowned slightly, covering his heart and shaking his head. I knew he must be having chest pains, scared to make me tremble. Realizing that Xiaobao and I both looked unwell, Gu Yanzhou cried out, Doctor! Get a doctor quickly! Before the personal doctor that Gu Yanzhou had arranged for Xiaobao could arrive, Xiaobao suddenly started convulsing in my arms, his little face quickly turning pale. The wedding venue was in chaos. Gu Yanzhou rushed in and picked up Xiaobao. After performing emergency resuscitation, we sped to the hospital. Acute rejection. He needs surgery immediately. The doctor's voice seemed to come from a faraway place. I gripped Gu Yanzhou's hand tightly, kneeling weakly towards the doctor. Save him. Please save him. The operating room light went on and off. When the doctor came out shaking his head, my world collapsed. Gu Yanzhou held me up, and we swayed unsteadily together. Impossible. I broke free from Gu Yanzhou's embrace and rushed into the operating room. Xiaobao, who would call me mommy in his soft, sweet voice, was lying on the hospital bed with a pale face, unable to open his eyes again. I collapsed onto Xiaobao, unable to make a sound. Baby, wake up. Mommy's here. I held Xiaobao for a long time, but I couldn't stop his small body from slowly growing cold. Gu Yanzhou held me, already crying his eyes out. Lucy, don't be like this. I turned around and slapped him hard across the face. Get out! It's all your fault. If you hadn't insisted on having a wedding, Xiaobao wouldn't. Before I could finish, my vision went black, and I fainted. When I woke up, I was lying in a hospital bed. You're awake. Gu Yanzhou pushed the door open, holding a bowl of porridge. Have something to eat. I looked out the window and saw that it was already late at night. How long have I been unconscious? 3 days. He sat down by the bed, trying to feed me. That's when I noticed that his eyes were bloodshot, and there was a dark stubble on his chin. Where's Xiaobao? He's already been taken care of. When you're feeling better, we'll go see him together. Gu Yanzhou, let's get divorced. The truth was, being close to him would bring me misfortune. No, it was the people I loved who would become unfortunate. This was heaven's punishment for loving him. Gu Yanzhou's hand trembled, and the porridge spilled onto the blanket. No. He put down the bowl, his eyes suddenly turning gloomy. You can't go anywhere. At that time, I didn't understand what the gloom in his eyes meant. It wasn't until after I was discharged from the hose. Pidal and Xiaobao's funeral was held that he imprisoned me in a villa in the countryside. The decorations in the house were all things that I liked. Wedding photos of us from 5 years ago were hung everywhere, as if the past 5 years were just a nightmare that I had. Even though Gu Yanzhou had put away all of Xiaobao's photos, and there wasn't a trace of Xiaobao in the house, the scars that Zhou Mingxing had inflicted on me were a clear reminder that the past 5 years were a very real nightmare. Gu Yanzhou carefully tried to win me over. Lucy, this will be our home from now on. We'll start over. I looked at the electric fence that had been erected around the villa's courtyard, interrupting him with a cold smile. What, are you going to imprison me? I just don't want to lose you. He grabbed my shoulders, pleading. Lucy, Xiaobao's gone, but we can still have children. Please give me a chance to make up for it. So, Xiaobao was nothing more than that to him. He spent every day racking his brains to cook for me, to make me happy, and expensive gifts were sent to the villa without a thought. But I never looked at him, and I didn't appreciate it. Gu Yanzhou asked me with red eyes, extremely aggrieved, Lucy, what do I have to do for you to forgive me? The dead are gone, and those of us who are alive have to continue living. Why bother dwelling on the past? Those of us who are alive have to continue living, he says. But wasn't he the first to mourn the past, to avenge the mother and daughter he grew up with? He had his revenge, and now he wanted me to let go of the past and be with him again. It was truly laughable and ironic. Unless time goes backwards, and my parents and child come back to life. His face instantly turned pale. In the days that followed, Gu Yanzhou became even more extreme in treating me well, and even more extreme in controlling me. He fired all the servants, personally took care of my daily life, and even studied psychology in order to try to control me mentally. But he didn't know that those humiliations and hardships had already been integrated into my bones and penetrated my marrow, and he couldn't easily remove them. Every night, he would secretly kneel in front of Xiaobao's portrait in the basement, repenting. But all his actions only earned my silence. He began to go crazy, forcing me to please him against my will. Lucy, you could please and humiliate Zhou Mingxing in 365 different ways for a full 5 years. Why can't you show me a little pity? I paid no attention, like a dead person. So he became even more ruthless, watching me even more closely. I had really had enough of this life. Until one day, I took advantage of his absence, smashed the bathroom mirror, and used a shard to cut my throat. Let me go. I looked at Gu Yanzhou, who had rushed in, and said coldly, otherwise, I'll die in front of you right now. His expression went from shock to anger, and finally to despair. You hate me that much? Yes. Even if I love you? Your love disgusts me. Gu Yanzhou staggered back a step, as if all his strength had been drained away. I was sent to the hospital to have my wound bandaged. He took care of me meticulously until I was discharged, handing me a card. If you want to leave, then go. But I won't divorce you. Even if you die, you can only be my wife. I didn't expect him to let go so easily, watching him warily. Don't worry, I won't stop you anymore. I didn't take his card, leaving the hospital and heading straight for the airport. The driver suddenly asked me if the car behind us was someone I knew. I looked back and saw Guyenjo's car slowly following us. I told the driver to speed up, and he accelerated. When we arrived at the airport, it was pouring rain. He got out of the car and used his suit to shield me from the rain, letting himself get soaked. Lucy, I can't bear to see you go. Guyenjo, I'm begging you, can you please never appear in front of me again? Fine? Okay. He stood quietly in the rain, watching me walk into the airport. The plane took off, and I let the tears flow freely. For my dead parents, for my dead child, and for the me who had once loved Guyenjo deeply. A month later, a strange number called me. It was Zhou Mingxing's lawyer. It turned out that he had already been diagnosed with a terminal illness. Before he came back to find me, the doctor had said that he only had a 30% chance of recovery. He didn't want to die with regrets, so he came back to confess to me. The lawyer said that after I left, Guyenjo had given up treatment and was waiting to die. The cancer spread quickly, and he died in pain, leaving all his property to me. He also left me a thick, handwritten confession. Guyenjo had arranged everything properly, and all I had to do was go back and sign the papers to get his property. But I didn't want the confession, burning it in a fire. Along with everything from the past, all burned to ashes. End.